Helo, noswaith dda, croeso I Amser Stori Adventure. Welcome to the Venture Story Time. We've had a bit of a technical difficulty here, so if we lose each other, then we will try and come back online, or we will catch you tomorrow. But we've been reading The Iron Man by Ted Hughes, and tonight is the final chapter. So, a very quick recap. We met the Iron Man on a dark night on the edge of a cliff that he stepped off and fell and broke into a billion pieces. But the Iron Man slowly put himself back together again. And then he walked off into the sea. And we thought that was perhaps the last we'd seen of the Iron Man, but he then turned up one night and scared Hogarth and his father. There he is, as tall as a tree. And he started eating all the tractors and barbed wire like spaghetti. And so the farmers decided to lay a trap for the Iron Man. They dug a big hole and covered it up with leaves and branches. And eventually the Iron Man came and fell into their trap, and they covered it over. And there he was buried. And everybody thought it was just a normal hill. And they also thought that was the last they'd see of the Iron Man. But he came back. And when he did, Hogarth made a deal with the Iron Man. He said, "Don't eat all our tractors, and you can live here in the scrapyard, where you can eat all the old cars and stoves and chains as much as you like." And that's where everybody was. Everybody was quite happy with that. But then a star appeared in the sky, and it started to get bigger and bigger until they realised it was a giant bat angel dragon beast that had come from outer space and landed on Australia. It was so big that it covered all of Australia. And all the countries of the world banded together and they went to war against the beast. But after they'd fired everything they did at it, the dragon just smiled, because it was from out of this world and nothing that the humans could do even touched it. So Hogarth went and begged the Iron Man to help out. And that's where we left the story. So, you join us on Chapter 5, The Iron Man's Challenge, the final chapter of The Iron Man. So, get yourselves comfy. I haven't got my dressing gown on tonight because it's rather warm. I've still got a chocolate point, the hot chocolate though. So, get yourselves comfy and we'll read the final chapter of The Iron Man, The Iron Man's Challenge. There was no time to be wasted. The Iron Man allowed himself to be taken to pieces. Arms, legs, body and head, all separate, so each part could be flown out to Australia on a different airliner. He was too big to be flown out in one piece. At the same time, a ship sailed from China, loaded with great iron girders, and another ship sailed from Japan loaded with fuel oil. Iron girders and fuel oil. I wonder what that's about. The Iron Man had ordered these. The girders and the oil and a team of engineers were unloaded on the beach of northern Australia, near the Space Bat Angel Dragon's neck. Then the Iron Man's parts were landed at the same spot, and the engineers fitted them together again. He stood up on the beach and shouted his challenge. "Set up!" he roared. "Set up and take notice, you great space lizard!" The Space Bat Angel Dragon sat up slowly. He had never noticed the fussing of the boats and the aeroplanes down there on the beach near his neck. Now he gazed in surprise at the Iron Man, who seemed very tiny to him, though his voice was big enough. The Iron Man spoke again. "I challenge you," he shouted, "to a test of strength." A test of strength? The Space Bat Angel Dragon couldn't believe his ears. A tiny little creature like the Iron Man challenging him to a test of strength. He simply laughed. Loud and long. Then he peered down again at the Iron Man. while the echo of his laugh was still rolling around the earth. He peered down out of the sky at this odd little thing on the beach, with the even tinier men scuttling around it. "And I can prove myself stronger than you are, and then you must promise to be my slave," cried the Iron Man. The dragon smiled. Aircraft flew around, watching this amazing conversation between the Space Bat Angel Dragon and the Iron Man. Ships out at sea watched through their telescopes. "And if you don't accept my challenge," shouted the Iron Man, "then you're a miserable, cowardly reptile to bother with." Lick him up. So the monster agreed and watched to see what the first test of strength was to be. After all, if he wanted, he could flatten the Iron Man with one eyelash. The engineers had fastened all the girders together in the shape of a grid. A huge iron bed. Oh, are we back? Are we? Okay, I think we had a slight signal problem there, but we're back. So, where were we? The engineers had fastened all the girders together in the shape of a grid. A huge iron bed the size of a house. Under this, they had made a steel-lined pit. Now they poured fuel oil into the pit. The Space Bat Angel Dragon watched. Now they lit the fuel oil and the flames roared up fiercely through the bars of the grid. I'm losing my words now. And now the Space Bat Angel Dragon got his first shock. The Iron Man stretched himself out on his back on the grid among the flames, his ankles crossed and his hand folded behind his head, just as if he were in bed, while the flames raged under and around him. And there's a picture of the Iron Man on his iron bed, surrounded by fierce flames. The flames grew hotter. The grid became red hot. The Iron Man's hair and elbows and toes became red hot. His body became first blue, then black, then began to glow dully. He was getting red. He smiled up at the monster, and still the flames grew fiercer. And now the Iron Man was entirely red hot. Pretty soon he was almost white hot, and still he smiled. Out of white hot eyes and with white hot lips, and all the time the Space Bat Angel Dragon stared down in astonishment. But now the fuel oil was all burned away. Suddenly the flames died, flickered, and went out. The white hot Iron Man sat up, stood up, got stiffly off his glowing bed, and began... Oh, we're back. Are we going to stay? Who knows? So, the white hot Iron Man sat up, stood up, got stiffly off his glowing bed, and began to walk to and fro on the sand. Cooled slowly. He went from white to orange, from orange to red, red to black, as he walked, coolly swinging his arms. Now, at last, he spoke to the monster. "If you can't bear to be made red hot like me, then you are weaker than I am, and I have won, and you are my slave." The monster began to laugh. "All right," he roared. "Build the fire, and I'll lie on it." He laughed again. He knew the Iron Man couldn't build a fire the size of Australia. But then his laugh stopped. The Iron Man was pointing upwards towards the sun. "There is a fire for you. You go and lie on it. Go and lie on the sun until you are red hot." The monster gazed up at the sun. He felt strangely cold suddenly, but how could he refuse? "All right," and he set off. With slow giant wing beats, he lifted his immense body off the earth and flew slowly up towards the sun while the whole earth watched. Slowly he covered the distance, getting smaller as he went. At last he landed, a ragged black shape sprawled across the sun. Everybody watched, and now they saw the monster begin to glow. Blue at first, then red, then orange. Finally his shape was invisible, the same blazing white as the sun itself. The monster was white hot on the sun. Then they saw him returning, a blazing shape tearing itself off the sun. This shape became red as it flew. It was writhing and growing larger. Slowly once more, it became the black bat-winged shape of the dragon flying back to earth. Down and down, bigger and bigger, cooling as he came, much more heavily than before on Australia. He landed so heavily that all over the world bells tumbled out of church towers and birds' eggs were jarred out of their nests. The monster stared down at the Iron Man. But it was hardly the same monster. His horns drooped. His face was... Oh, we're back, I think. Let us try. But it was hardly the same monster. His horns had drooped. His face was wizened and black. His claws were scorched blunt. His crest flopped over limply, and great ragged holes were burnt in its wings. It had been terrible for him on the fires of the sun, but he had done it, and here he was. The fires of the sun are far, far hotter than any fires here on earth can ever be. "There," he roared, "I've done it." The Iron Man nodded, but his answer was to signal the engineers. Once more they poured oil into the trough under the grid. Once more they lit it. Once more flames roared up and the black smoke billowed up into the clear blue. And once more the Iron Man stretched himself out on the grid of the raging furnace. The space bat angel dragon watched in horror. He knew what this meant for him. He would have to go once more into the sun's flames. And now the Iron Man's hair and toes and elbows were red hot. He lay back in the flames, smiling up at the dragon, and his whole body was becoming red hot, then orange, and finally white, like the blazing wire inside an electric light bulb. At this point, the Iron Man was terribly afraid. For what would happen if the flames went on getting fiercer and fiercer? He would melt. He would melt and drip into the flames like so much treacle, and that would be the end of him. So, even though he grinned up at the dragon as though he were enjoying the flames, he was not enjoying them at all, and he was very, very frightened. Even the engineers, who were hiding behind thick asbestos screens over a mile away along the beach, felt the hair singeing on their heads, and they too thought that it was the end of the Iron Man. Perhaps they poured in just a little too much fuel. But at that very moment, and the very second that the edge of the Iron Man's ear started to melt, the fuel was used up and the flames died. Whew! The engineers came running down the beach. They saw the red-hot Iron Man getting off his fearful bed, and they saw him moving to and fro on the sand, cooling off. At last the Iron Man looked up at the dragon. He could hardly speak after his ordeal in the flames. Instead, he simply pointed towards the sun and jabbed his finger as he gazed up at the monster. "That's twice," he managed to say. "Now it's your turn." The monster did not laugh. He set off, up from earth, beating his colossal wings, writhing in his long, ponderous body up into the sky towards the sun. Now it was his turn, and he did not laugh. Last time had been too dreadful. But he went. He couldn't let the Iron Man win. He couldn't let the Iron Man of the earth beat him in his terrible contest. So all the telescopes and cameras of the world watched him flying into the sun. They saw him land among the flames as before. As before, they saw his great ragged shape like an inkblot sprawled amongst the flames over the centre of the sun. They saw him began to glow red, then orange, and at last they could no longer see him. He and the sun were one blinding whiteness. He had done it again. But was the sun burning him up? Had he melted in the sun? Where was he? No, here he was. Here he came, slowly, slowly, down through space, much more slowly than before. His white-hot flying body cooled slowly to red as he came, and as he grew larger, coming nearer and nearer, he finally became once more black, and the great black shape flagged its way down through space until, bump! Heavier than ever, he landed on Australia. This time, the bump was so heavy it knocked down certain skyscrapers, sent tidal waves sweeping into harbours, and threw herds of cows onto their backs. All over the world, anyone who happened to be riding a bicycle at that moment instantly fell off. The Space Bat Angel Dragon landed so ponderously because he was exhausted. The fires of the sun had worked on him in a way that was awful to see. His wings were only rags of what they had been. His skin was crisped, and all his fatness had been changed by the fires of the sun into precious stones. Jewels, emeralds, rubies, turquoises, and substances that had never ever been found on Earth before. And when he landed with such a jolt, these loads of precious gems burst through the holes scorched in his skin and scattered down onto the Australian desert beneath. But the Iron Man could not allow himself to pity the Space Bat Angel Dragon. He signalled to the engineers. "Round 3, he shouted, and the engineers began to pour in the oil. But what was this? An enormous woofing sound, a booming, wheezing, sneezing sound. The Space Bat Angel Dragon was weeping. If the Iron Man got on the furnace again, it would mean that he, the monster, would have to take another roasting in the sun, and he could not stand another. "Enough! Enough! Enough!" he roared. "No! No!" replied the Iron Man. "I feel like going on. We've only had 2 each." "It's enough," cried the dragon. "It's too much. I can't stand another. The fires of the sun are too terrible for me. I submit." "Then I've won," shouted the Iron Man, "because I'm quite ready to roast myself red hot again. If you dare not, then I've won." "You've won. Yes, you've won, and I'm your slave," cried the Space Bat Angel Dragon. "I'll do anything you like, but not the sun again." And he plunged his chin into the Pacific to cool it. "Very well," said the Iron Man. "From now on you are the slave of the earth. What can you do?" "Alas," said the Space Bat Angel Dragon, "I am useless, utterly useless. All we do in space is fly or make music." "Make music?" asked the Iron Man. "How? What sort of music?" "Haven't you heard of the music of the spheres?" asked the dragon. "It's the music that makes space itself. All the spirits inside all the stars are singing. I am a star spirit. I sing too. The music of the spheres is what makes space so peaceful." "Then whatever you want to eat up on Earth..." "No, then whatever made you want to eat up Earth?" asked the Iron Man. "If you're all so peaceful up there, how did you get such greedy and cruel ideas?" The dragon was silent for a long time after this question, and at last he said, "It just came over me. I don't know why. It just came over me. Listening to the battling shouts and the war cries of the earth, I got excited and wanted to join in." "Well, you can sing for us instead," said the Iron Man. "It's a long time since anybody here on Earth heard the music of the spheres. It might do us all good." And so it was fixed. The Space Bat Angel Dragon was to send his star back into the constellation of Orion, and he was to live inside the moon. And every night he was to fly around the earth through the heavens singing. So his fearful shape slowly swimming through the night sky didn't frighten people, because it was dark and he couldn't be seen. But the whole world could hear him, a strange, soft music that seemed to fill the whole of space, a deep, weird singing, like millions of voices singing together. Meanwhile, the Iron Man was the world's hero. He went back to his scrapyard, but now everybody in the world sent him a present. Some only sent him a nail, some sent him an old car. One rich man even sent him an ocean liner. He sprawled there in his yard, chewing away, with his one ear slightly drooped from where the white heat of that last roasting had slightly melted it. As he chewed, he hummed in harmony to the singing of his tremendous slave in heaven. And the Space Bat Angel's singing had the most unexpected effect. The singing got inside everybody and made them as peaceful as starry space and blissfully above all their earlier little squabbles. The strange, soft, eerie space music began to alter all the people of the world. They stopped making weapons the countries began to think how they could live pleasantly alongside each other rather than how to get rid of each other. All they wanted to do was to have peace, to enjoy this strange, wild, blissful music from the giant singer in space. And if you look very carefully at that picture, you can see the silhouette of the space monster in the night sky. And if you listen carefully at night, you can hear the peaceful singing of the spheres in the sky. And that is the end of the Iron Man. I hope you enjoyed it. A little bit different from Mildred Hubble and the Worst Witch. And tomorrow we will start a brand new story. So keep your eyes peeled for what that might be. Let's have a look who's been watching. Bronson. Hello, Bronson. We all hope you had a wonderful birthday. I did send you birthday wishes earlier, but our earlier video cut out. I know there's been a few technical problems with this one. So hopefully that's just a glitch for today and we'll be back to normal tomorrow. Lynn Bowen's been watching. Hello, Lynn. And Claire Hughes has been watching as well. I couldn't get the comments from Bronson's birthday up before the video, so I will pull them up tomorrow and we can read them out as well. So a bit of a dodgy one today, but hopefully we'll be back to normal tomorrow. So all that leaves me to say is, diolch am wylio. Thank you for watching. Breuddwyddion dda, sweet dreams, nos da, good night, and hopefully I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta rwan.